What is going on? Let's get some things adjusted here. Yep. We got a show for you today. Let's post some people on, man. Hopefully we can get some people in the comments. We get the comment section going. My name is Che. This is the No Spoon Podcast. You're tuned in. If you're listening to the live version, get in the comment section. We got a good show for you today. Get in the comment section if you're listening to the live version. If you're watching this on YouTube, we got the comments going up. We got a really interesting show for you today. Excited about my guest. Excited about what we about to put out there. Let's get to it. I'm gonna end this right now, and we're gonna start this show right off the right way. And there it goes. Bam. My name is Che. This is the No Spoon Podcast, where we talk about culture, politics, and common sense. I want to welcome everybody to the show. Thank you for joining us. If you're watching the live feed over on YouTube, if you are, get in the comment section. The comment sections are open, so you can give your feedback, give your 2 cents into it. We got a great show for you today. We got a great guest. She's going to add a lot to it. You know how we do it on here. Before we go on, of course, let me encourage you guys. Please subscribe to the channel. Please like it, share it, get this out to as many people as possible. Leave comments. If you're listening to the replay, you're watching the replay on YouTube, that doesn't mean you're exempt from that. Also, if you are listening to it on Apple, Spotify, any of those different platforms, man, leave us a review. Preferably leave 5 stars. You know what I mean? Give us a good rating. What's going on, Lisa? I see you in there. Yeah. Leave a rating. It helps us. That's the whole thing, man. The algorithm. I was just backstage right now. I was talking to my guests. We were talking about how the shadow banning and all that type of stuff, but they can't beat something that everybody wants to hear. So more we share it, the more we like it, the more we leave comments on it. Even the haters, I love all them too. The people that say things that disagree and they don't like, and a lot of them just say they just want to be heard. I'm here to hear it. I want to hear you say something. I want to hear you disagree. I'd like to hear some big people put up some good arguments in disagreement. I never really see any of those. I see a lot of like insults and little drive-bys, and then they keep pushing. But that's great too. Like I said, thank you for pushing the algorithm. So subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so now, and do so before we get off this live show. But I want to thank you guys for watching the live show, and we got a great guest today. I'm going to pull her on right now. She is the extraordinary Faye Bishop.
Hey, Shay.
What's going on, Faye? How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. Why don't you tell everybody who you are, what you do, and how you going to make this show lit today?
Well, I am Faye Bishop of the Faye Bishop Report over on YouTube, my little channel over there. But I am Faye Bishop, owner and creator of Lead Casting Call. It is a entertainment jobs website that actually points people in the direction of getting jobs in the entertainment industry, not necessarily in front of the camera, but mostly behind the camera. On the business end, on the production side. That's what we do. It was established in 2009. I believe we are now in our 12th year, going success. So when you get a chance, follow Lead Casting Call across all socials, as well as me, Miss Faye Bishop.
Yeah, and I'll put all those who are, especially if you're watching the replay, I'm going to put all those in the description box down there at the bottom. I think Lead Casting Call is in the description box right now, so you can hit that link right there. You want to go check her out after the show. We got a lot to talk about right now. Mm-hmm. So, very interesting things going on, Faye. What is it? This before we get started into some of the stories that we got. I mean, obviously, 2020. Now we're in 2023. So much has been going on. So much has been happening. From your point of view, from your perspective, Um, Tell us what's going on. I mean, what do you think about just everything in general, from the politics to the culture to the, and before 2020, only women can get pregnant. Now men can. So has this kind of turned your world upside down as well?
It hasn't turned my personal world upside down,
Right, right.
but it has it's affecting a lot of people in my community, so much so that I actually moved out of the city. I was someone who lived in 3 different cities in the United States. I'm from Philadelphia. I was born and raised in Philly. I lived in New York and Brooklyn, Flatbush, shout out to Flatbush, New York, for a
Hmm.
little while, for about 5 years. And I lived in Orlando, Florida for a long time. I'm a city girl. I love the city. But within the last past, I would say 4 years, I've seen a shift in a lot of the cities. And it's, of course, is due to the policies of 2020, I will call them,
Hmm.
that affected so much that is taking place in the world right now. They called it the new normal. It's not a normal, it's an abnormality that we're dealing
Right.
with, but it's affecting a lot of people. And that is the part that did affect me and my family.
Yeah, it's been a crazy roller coaster since 2020, and I think it's just um one of the things, at least for me personally, that really opened my eyes was, I mean, I never really trusted the establishment, and especially the establishment media, but I see now like how it's like in every single story, there is no story where they don't have their own bias or their own twist and their own agenda to push. You know what I mean? There is no such thing as just news. It's all
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's
And
always
if
just
you notice, everything's being treated like some sort of an event now. And I do mean every single thing. We're It's like almost like we wake up every day and we're all waiting on social media to dictate to us how we should feel, what we should do, and how we should think. And it's all based on whatever topic is trending. That then leads to dictating how we're all going to go about our day and what we should care about. This is even before some of us even brush our teeth. So
for real.
how
Yeah.
crazy that's how crazy it is. The thing is, the internet never closes. It's a 24-hour a day, 365-day a year shop. And the moment you open your screen, the moment you log in, there's a story, and it's going to impact your emotions in some form or another.
Well, that's kind of interesting because this kind of leads us into our first story, and kind of the take that we're going to get it. Obviously, it's been national news since I believe it was last week, was it, or earlier this week?
Yes.
Yes, I mean the way the news cycle moves, it's like everything is blended together. So I'm like kind of like that just happened yesterday. They're like, yes, last week, or that just happened last week. They're like, yes, yesterday. But it's like, we had the shooting of Ralph Yarl, who was a 16-year-old kid, and I supposedly he knocked on the wrong door. He was going to pick up his little brother or something like that. I'm going to play a clip right here from a news outlet, just kind of briefly telling us. This is a couple of minutes long, so we'll watch that. They'll give us the brief instead of you guys listen to me ramble on about it. But here it goes.
Prosecutors in Kansas City, Missouri have charged the man accused of shooting a teenage boy after he knocked on the wrong door. The criminal complaint says the accused shooter did not speak to the teen before allegedly shooting him through a glass door. The 16-year-old is now home after spending the weekend in the hospital. Roxana Saberi has the latest details.
Do you think if he was a white 16-year-old boy and he rang that door, do you think it would have been the same outcome?
Ralph Yarl's family says the 16-year-old was gunned down after mixing up the address. He was supposed to go to Northeast 115th Terrace, but instead rang a doorbell on Northeast 115th Street, just 1 block away. The Yarl family's attorney says Ralph waited for a few minutes after ringing the bell before the door opened.
He was immediately confronted with an armed man who told him that he did not want to see him on his property again, and then he opened fire.
Still, Jarl's aunt, Faith Spoonmore, says the teen ran for help, knocking on 3 more doors before a neighbor called 911.
As his aunt, what do you think about that?
Hearing that part of the story is even harder. He was clearly hurt. He was clearly bleeding. He was clearly needing help.
Ralph is now recovering at home. Kansas City Mayor Quinton Lucas says it's hard not to draw that conclusion.
Something like this happening is unimaginable and it's unbelievable. And it's hard to expect that something like this would happen if Ralph weren't black.
The shooting sparked protests here on Sunday.
We just want justice. You know, Ralph is a good kid. He doesn't deserve what's happening to him.
Roxana Saberi joins me now. Roxana, what more do we know about the investigation and the accused shooter?
Yeah, the prosecutor, John, identified the suspect as 85-year-old Andrew D. Lester, a white male. He's been charged with 2 felonies, assault in the first degree, which carries a potential life sentence, and armed criminal action, which could lead to up to 15 years in prison. A warrant has been issued for his arrest, and the prosecutor could.
So what are your immediate thoughts on this? Because I just kind of started following this case a few days ago, but what was your immediate response, like your immediate thoughts on this?
Well, my immediate response to this, first of all, I tend to take the wait and see approach when it comes to a lot of the shootings these days, only because I try not to get myself emotionally involved in it. That happened to me in 2012 with the Trayvon Martin case, and we saw the outcome of that. And this case is kind of reminiscent of that. Here you have a young man who is on his way to get his little brother. He happened to knock on the wrong door, just like Trayvon Martin was walking down the street from the store, I believe, grabbing Arizona iced teas. And then you had only George Zimmerman followed him, but this man just opened up the door and he just started shooting him. The only thing that kind of, I would say, I won't say rubs me the wrong way. It's just that there have been other shootings similar to this to happen in recent days. For instance, there was a story about 2 cheerleaders who got shot after getting in the wrong car in a parking lot in Texas. And then there was another story that happened in upstate New York where a woman pulled into the wrong driveway and she too was shot by the homeowner, and she actually died. And I thank God that Ralph Yarl is alive and to tell the story. But the reason that the Ralph Yarl story is winning the victim race in this one, it's for the obvious reason. He's Black and the shooter is white. But the stories are essentially the same. They're cranking up the racial division psyop once again. And while I'm glad that justice is going to be served in this case, I do see that Kansas City reacted very quickly. But we do have to pay attention to the timing of these shootings and the hate crimes. They all seem to conveniently happen right when lawmakers are pushing legislation involving civil liberties and guns. Yeah. And that's what sticks out to me about this story.
Yeah, I mean, there was also, to kind of piggyback off what you said, there was the other story of a man who shot up a family. I guess he shot two adults and a child, a 6-year-old child or something like that, when the over the basketball came into his yard or something like that. In that case, though, the shooter was Black and the victims were white. It's not, obviously it's not as big a story as the Ralph Yarl thing, but I did see a couple people, I think Joy Reid was one of them, that posted about it. But of course her spin was, and more guns are supposed to solve this problem. You know, she attacks the gun angle. From what I've read, I think the initial reports in the Ralph Yarl thing was that there was an early report that said that Yarl tried to go in. He tried to open the door. There was an early report saying he tried to open the door, and I think that the shooter in the case is saying that he tried to come in. I think some of the neighbors had said that they heard a tussle of some sort or something like that. Uh, I don't know. I'm just going off of certain
Neither
things that
do
I've
I.
said.
That's
Yeah, you know what I
wow.
mean? But I
Mhm.
think the thing is like this. The way that the case is presented, the way it's presented in the media, it only makes sense if you believe this one underlying premise. And the one underlying premise is that when a white person encounters a black person, a white person will be aggressive and take and act violently towards them out of racial hatred. Like that's the underlying, like if you don't believe that that exists here in America, if you don't believe that that's something, a way that people respond, then you won't believe this story. But if you believe that, then it's very easy for you to say, yeah, yeah, he shot him. And, I mean, you've seen his aunt say, would this have happened if he were white? And you've seen the attorney say the same thing. Would this happen if you're white? Which is implying that the only reason he got shot is because the
That's
shooter was white and he was black. If you don't accept that premise, you start to poke all types of holes. Now, you said something interesting a minute ago. You said the racial psyop.
Yeah, it's like every single time that lawmakers are pushing some sort of legislation involving civil liberties and guns, all of a sudden you're getting all of these shootings. It's either a hate crime shooting or a mass shooting that is
Mhm,
taking place. If you've noticed within the last 45 days alone, there's been what, about 8 or 9 mass shootings in the country, and
mhm,
now here comes the hate crimes. And they usually tend to mesh them together. And to me, I just feel like it's the timing of everything that just throws it just makes you question a lot. What's going on? And the thing is, people take the bait. Like you said, if that premise isn't there, where the victim is black and the offender is white, if you do not accept that the reason that the victim got shot is because he was black, you're kind of, poking holes in the story, or you're not going along with groupthink. And that's where that racial division psyop, it's all a psyop, side job to me. I mean,
mhm.
unfortunately, there is evil in the world. Things do happen.
Right.
I'm not sitting here saying that. But even evil isn't this punctual in terms of timing. Even when you think back to the murder of George Floyd, which happened before our very eyes during the pandemic, during that time, so much happened um, underlying in terms of where government was transferring tremendous amounts of taxpayer dollars to the
Right. Yeah.
1%. There was a lot of mandated commerce. I mean, that was going on. Yet they wanted us to focus in on the fact that George was black, the officer was white, there was an intent to kill, and that was it.
That's it. That's what I'm saying. Even in that case, if you don't accept the fact that white people, and in this case a white police officer, if you don't understand, if you don't believe the premise that they would naturally or innately be aggressive towards black people, then that's hard to believe. But the problem is that's what we've been told to believe. So therefore it is true. You know what I'm saying? And I think
Right.
what you're saying, like with the like, first of all, going back to the coincidences, you know, I mean, I hate to say it's this is a cold reality. And like you said, you're a city girl, so you've grown up in the city. People get shot a lot. It happens, especially when you're living where there's gangs and there's crime
Mhm.
and there's drugs. There are shootings. The
Yes.
media, however, has the power to show you what they want to show you based on the narrative that they want to spin. So we talked about not just the Ralph Yarl, but you talked about two other incidences, the one in upstate New York, the one with the cheerleaders. I brought up the one with the basketball and all that. Those are things that happen. I think those things happen all the time.
They do. They
But
do.
CNN isn't reporting on those all the time. But when it fits a narrative, then CNN goes, Let's play that one, that one, that one, all back to back. And here's the person sitting at home, and they're going, "Oh my God, people are just getting killed for no reason."
And the people that are getting killed are Black. Oh my God, let's riot. Let's protest. Let's get out into the streets and break shit up. And and we tend to follow, especially Black people, and I hate this, and liberals, we tend to go navigate right in that direction. Even if we're not physically out there, we're online on the feeds, fighting and debating over these issues. And it's like causing that racial divide, which is why media does it. And it's deliberate and it is on purpose.
Yeah,
Because
that's what
it
I'm saying.
serves a purpose, their
Well,
agenda.
right. So I look at it like this, like if the agenda is to get rid of the guns, and let me before I go on, let me shout out the wife. She just gave a little, that was her on the screen with the clapping hands. So anyways, yeah. Anyways, if the agenda is to get rid of the guns, then you're kind of putting everything together. There are racist white people out there, and these racist white people also support a strong Second Amendment. That means they want guns, and that means they're racist, and they will kill you just for showing up to your front yard. You know what I mean? On accident. It's this guy that killed or shot, he didn't kill him. So excuse me. I mean, people are saying that. I think the Washington Post had to retract the statement saying
Yeah,
that
initially when I read it too, I thought he was dead. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't know that he had survived that.
Trust me, the media was hoping that happened. You know, they are. I mean, it's sad to say, but that's the reality. Like that's because there's going to be a funeral, and Al Sharpton's going to show up, and it's going to just be more and
And
more
Trump and
clicks.
everybody.
Oh my God! I mean, that's the sad reality. They are hoping that he would have died. It would have been better. I mean, it sounds terrible, but I'm not the only one that's thinking that. Anyways, it's like they are putting this whole thing together, and you're mashing it all together, and then you're trying to create this narrative, and that's how this thing works, man. It's a sick and twisted way that they have of trying to portray something um in order to get an agenda across.
Yes, and it's guns. It's the same thing with the mass shootings. The moment, if you notice, the moment that it was revealed, it particularly for the last two shootings, the most recent ones, I would say within the last 2 to 3 weeks, when it came out that the shooters were transgender, all of a sudden the media tried to reel it back. Oh, they tried to dig for all sorts of things about, oh, she was upset because of a relationship she had and the girl broke up with her or something like that. Oh, they dealt with all sorts of mental issues. They were seeing a counselor because at that point, what the media is trying to do is just trying to shift gears with you not seeing that body dysmorphia and transgenderism isn't some sort of a mental issue, but rather that this person was just dealing with a breakup or having a hard time, and that's why they went and shot up an entire Covenant school or something like that. It's usually when they want to keep with a certain narrative, and when it doesn't fit that narrative, usually the story either drops after 2 weeks, after a week, or they try to act very quickly to change the story and try to add to it. They did it with Dylan Klebold and that other kid with Columbine. They tried to throw the mental illness angle in. Oh no, they did the bullying angle. Oh, they were bullied at school. Remember that? And all of that. And come to find out, one of them had been battling depression that was ignored purposely by his parents for nearly 2 years. And they were very sane. They planned everything. They plotted everything. They had entire, manifestos written out about when they were going to do it, the day they were going to do it, how they were going to do it, who they intended to kill. But the media really tried to push the bullying angle. And this is how they tend to do that with a lot of these shootings. But it's all really to push a narrative, their narrative. They really don't care about me or you or the victim.
Oh no, yeah, definitely.
You know, and that's another thing too we need to get through our head. Do we really think the media cares about Ralph Yarl for real? You know what I'm saying? Do you think they care
But
about they
no,
don't care.
not at all. Literally just said I think they were hoping he died. So I mean, let me play this clip real quick. I'm gonna try to share this. It was really last minute. I don't know if you saw the grandson of the shooter, um,
No,
and
I
the
didn't
Ralph
see that.
Yard kid. Yeah, I'm gonna try to play this clip real quick. Let's see if it can get it up here. Are you able to hear? I think we hit. Yeah, I don't think I was able to get it up there. Did you see it?
I saw the picture, but I couldn't hear it.
Yeah, let me try it one more time here. And we're going to. So that's the grandson.
Mm-hmm. He looks like Sean King with braids.
It's not playing. Hold on a second. Let me one more time. If not, I didn't have time to download it when I saw it. It was let's see if we can get it up here now. The sound's not coming through, huh?
Right.
Oh man. Yeah, everything's. But anyways, I mean, he went on to say, he believes his grandfather is racist, but he had racist tendencies only because he is a white Christian male. And well, I don't think he said white. I think he said an American Christian male. So they have a certain, and he watches Fox News, and he believed in certain conspiracy theories. He specifically named election denial. He named Fauci dogs, which I'm assuming that's the theory with Fauci experimenting on dogs and stuff like that. And then he also named, when Don Lemon asked him um specifically about the what he said that was racist, he said his grandfather talked about black women and abortion. So but he didn't say anything like that was specifically racist about it. He
Right.
just said something, and he just said, obvious. And then there's also the his old Twitter, I guess his old Twitter account. He was promoting Satanism, trans rights, BLM, defund the police or abolish the police. I think it was abolish prisons. Obviously, you see he's got the cornrows, which I mean, you knew you were about to be on CNN. I don't know if he was trying to portray himself to be a little more hood by having the real nappy cornrows in and not really like getting them tightened up. I'm just saying, like he looked like you about to be on national TV. You don't think you could get it?
Right.
But he was
Well,
trying. That was
the fact that CNN and Don Lemon needed to get this young man on TV to tell us that an 85-year-old white man was racist, is that difficult to believe? Like, this is what I mean about the media. Don't, pee on my forehead and tell me he's 85 years old. That's not that difficult to believe that someone that old could be racist due to the timing that they were born, a lot of things that happened during the era that they grew up in. That's not unusual. Not saying that he's right for what he did, absolutely
Right.
not. But did we really need the grandson or nephew?
The grandson.
Grandson to get on TV to tell us this. And this is how you know that they're cranking up that racial division psyop. They're trying to push that really, really hard to say, look, he was a racist man. He killed him because he was Black. It had nothing to do with anything else. That's the reason why he did it. And that we should hate this man. He's going to, he's 85 years old. He's like, if he goes to jail and get convicted, which I'm sure he probably will, he's probably going to die there.
Yeah, I mean, well, for one, I think this he's like, George Zimmerman 2.0.
Yes.
Right. And so my thing is, what kills me, and my thing is like this: if these people are so racist, then where is the real overt racism? Like, why is it always like this little, like, oh, he watched Fox News, so
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
he voted for Trump.
Like everybody. Look, I'll say this, and this, people know my past, and I've been incarcerated and all that type of stuff. So, I've done time with guys that were really racist, like real skinheads, real skinheads, neo-Nazis, white supremacists that would tell you that wouldn't have a problem. I mean, guys who have swastikas tattooed on their heads and faces and stuff like that, right? Like, that's real racism. They are blatantly telling you that's where they're at. How come I don't see those guys doing these type of acts? Why is it always like this little gray area type of, like, 85-year-old white man who grew up during a time of Jim Crow South? So,
right.
You know what I'm saying? And he's a white Christian male, so of course he's racist. He watches Fox News. He believes the election was stolen, which last time that I checked, I didn't know, thinking that what the election have to do with racism. Like,
notice the verbiage is always the same. And they always look, well, on his social media account, he would post this and he would post that. They did that with when they found the father of one of those shooters, the one that was at Colorado.
Yeah. I remember that one.
It was the same thing. Oh, his son had these radical views and he was racist and he was this, and he posted to social media all the time about Trump. He was a Trump supporter, and the narrative is always the same. And then you get people like Don Lemon and many others to get on TV and interview a family member just to try to convince us that the person is just racist. This is what made them racist. More racist. And this is the racial division psyop that I'm talking about. It's like,
but by the way, the grandson's name is Clint Ludwig, which I believe by default he's racist just by having the name Clint. When have you ever met a Clint that ain't racist? Like, come on. But he feel like, I'm gonna go ahead and get these little 3-week-old French braids in my hair, and then I'm gonna
look dirty.
I think I want you to watch the film. Watch the tape. I think what I'll do is I'm gonna make a short little video out of this segment right here, and I'm gonna put the whole thing on there because I had trouble getting it on, so it was last minute. But I want you to pay attention, because when he slightly turns his head, right? He slightly turns his head, maybe 30 degrees or so. Watch. Just listen. I think back here he has a feather. Like, for real, like like an Indian feather. So he's trying. God. So this is your Midwest white kid named Clint that was like, I don't want to watch Fox News anymore, Grandpa. Hey, Paw, I'm not watching Fox News no more. I'm going to braid my hair and put a feather in the back of my head, and I'm going to act like I'm everything that you're not.
Right.
Which is what I think most of these people are trying to do anyways. Like, this is just a rebellious stage that you're all in. You know what I mean? And until you actually have responsibilities, you'll be this, left-wing nut job.
Oh, my goodness.
Man, I don't know. I just think this stuff is like, it's
planned. It's planned. Yeah. It's carefully laid out and placed in front of us. one of the things that I always tell people, and I posted about it a couple of days ago on social media, like, govern yourselves accordingly if you're paying attention to everything that's going on in the world, because there's a timing to all of this that is just, it's never coincidental. It isn't. It's all by design. It's they plan this accordingly, and it always happens either during an election season or whenever legislation is trying to push laws that involve civil liberties and guns. It is. It could be a mass shooting. It's always a mass shooting or a hate crime. Those two.
Yeah, and it's important to put those two together, because if we get if we get hateful people, racist people with guns, then there'll be more mass shootings. And
Right.
speaking of mass events, where the massives, there have been some interesting things that have been taken on some of these big cities lately, specifically in Chicago and even out here in LA in the Compton area. It's these things
Mm,
where they're calling these mobs of teens who are just taking over, and they're looting and they're going crazy. I'm gonna play this clip from out this way in Compton, this
mm.
past weekend.
Thousands of dollars in lost convenience store smash and grabs, this massive street takeovers. It was a chaotic weekend night in Compton. Neighbors in the area, they are speaking out. Eyewitness News reporter Shayla Girardin is live in Compton with more. Shayla.
Yes, over 200 people were involved in this takeover, and still no arrests have been made. Now, locals say they are tired of the same thing happening over and over again, and they've had enough. Local residents are speaking out after a night of chaos on the streets of Compton this weekend.
It was just a matter of time. I knew it was going to happen.
Early Sunday morning, hundreds of people took over the intersection of Alondra Boulevard and Central Avenue, looting several businesses and leaving behind a trail of destruction. Neighbors say this is nothing new.
This intersection, this goes down 2 or 3 nights a week down here. You know, we hear the motors roaring. If you live close by, you probably can't breathe after they get going because of smoke from the tires.
Video of the Arco gas station shows the crowd stealing thousands of dollars of merchandise while the on-duty clerk hides for safety. Locals blame outsiders for the ongoing destruction.
We're not just a bunch of savages sitting here roiling in our own filth. It's someone else coming in, making us look bad. I really believe that.
According to data published by LASD and reported to the State Department of Justice, burglaries, robberies, and thefts in Compton jumped significantly in 2022. Right now, street takeovers are a big part of the problem.
Street takeovers have been happening every weekend in the city of Compton.
The Sheriff's Department says they didn't have enough manpower to stop Sunday morning's takeover.
Our number one problem is not having the personnel, the units, and the deputies available to respond to just street takeovers. If we have those units respond just to takeovers, there's nobody else available to respond to other emergent causes.
LASD says amid the short staffing, they're taking action to try and turn the tide.
We're going to partner up with California Highway Patrol and Los Angeles Police Department to help us conduct several operations in the city of Compton and other areas to avoid the street takeovers from occurring.
Wow.
Just lawlessness, just takeovers. And that's been going on not just out here. That I think Chicago. That's another story that I will get into. Philly has been going on. I mean, this
Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, people are just going. I mean, these kids, and it's almost like nothing is happening.
Nothing at all. I honestly believe that what we're dealing with is the long economic hangover from the pandemic policies and the George Floyd riots. Because if things weren't, it's not like things weren't bad before then, but you certainly definitely noticed the shift happen after 2020. Especially in a lot of these cities. As I was speaking about earlier during the introduction, that's one of the things that pushed me out of the city. I've been living out here in this small suburban town now for over 3.5 years. I left in 2020 because I couldn't take living in the city no more. And I never thought that it would come to that for someone like me who's used to living there. And, I love the city. I never had an issue with it. I think cities are great for, young people who are just getting started in their careers, those who are it's a great place to work. I never thought that I would ever leave the city, but I noticed after the pandemic policies, the George Floyd riot, there was a shift, and American communities are safer today than they were 2 years ago. Crime rates have surged since then. And the defund police when that became the rallying cry, that's what really made things worse.
Yeah, I agree. Interesting. Like this happened maybe a year ago, little less than a year ago. And they had a takeover somewhere similar to where that one took place at, and like that following weekend, I was at a birthday party for a friend of my wife's, and there was another one of the only other guys there. I didn't know him, but we ended up going to this. He was like, "Hey, let's go to you wanted to go to the store," and yeah, I went with him. And so we were in the car, and I asked him what he does, and it turns out he was an LAPD officer. So I asked him about that situation. I said, man, did you see that situation that happened? Because I guess they like ransacked and looted a 7-Eleven. And he told me, I said, why doesn't like basically why didn't you guys do anything about it? And he said, well, basically we've been told that as long as there's nobody's getting hurt, we just leave him alone. And he was like, and he said, because it's too many of them for one. If we try to intervene, there the odds of them not resisting are very high. So they're going to resist. There's going to be an altercation. We're going to have to use force. And he said, and then we're going to end up on the front page of every news cycle, or we're going to be, the Derek Chauvin, the whole. He was like, so it's just not worth it. He said, so he goes, our lieutenant has told us, just stand down. So when they do this, as long as there's no weapons, as long as there's nobody's reporting any weapons, nobody's reporting anybody getting hurt, then we just stand down, because it's just not worth it. It's not worth it to go in there and try to stop these kids, and they resist, and then we use force, and everybody's pulling out their phones, and the next thing you know, we're all being taken away in handcuffs because some kid that we had to, use force on died. And now, he's being portrayed as, this angel who, just wanted to have a night out with his friends. And, how the story goes. It's just,
Yeah. And I actually believe that that's the story across the board. And that's
yeah.
why we're seeing so much lawlessness go on. Democrats bear a substantial amount of responsibility for all of this, in my opinion.
Oh,
Far
yeah.
too many of them. Yeah, I mean, it's no way around that. They could try to no, it's Democrats. Far too many of them have actively supported the defund the police movement. They even encouraged a lot of the resentment towards law enforcement, particularly during 2020 and the George Floyd situation happening. They encouraged a lot of the rioting. You even had people like Maxine Waters and even the Vice President Kamala Harris herself encouraging people, burn it down.
Yeah.
It's disgraceful, the amount of anti-police rhetoric that was being spewed around that time, to the point where it has become such an accepted part of our national conversation now. And I believe what everyone underestimated was the consequence. They didn't expect that this was going to happen and that all of this would linger on for years and years and years that followed.
Yeah, I mean, it's common sense. It should be common sense. Should be common sense that if if I know that there's a chance, and this is the reality here, man. Like, look, and I say this from somebody that understands both. I don't understand both sides. I understand primarily one side, and that's the side of the perpetrators. So I understood this, and this is one thing. Like being in prison, we used to always understand that at the end of the day, you know, this is our life. This is just a job for you. So where are you willing to take this? You know what I'm saying? So you got guys like if I'm in prison and I got a life sentence and you're just here for 8-hour shift, where are you willing to take this? I know where I'm willing to take this. Are you willing to take it to that extreme? And so as somebody on that side of the fence, I know where I can push you to, and I know the limits that you're not willing to go to. And so then I can force and get my way. And if I know that there's like you're under a lot of scrutiny, and I trust me, people know, they know that these cops are under a lot of scrutiny, that there's phones everywhere, that any little thing that they do. This is why you see people, as soon as they run into the police or they get pulled over by the police, they start calling racism, because it works.
And they breaking out the phones. They are literally breaking out the phones. I know this because it happened. It happened with my fiance. He got pulled over. He got pulled over. He cut through a gas station to get to the other side. He literally first he got on the phone to call me, said, "Babe, I'm getting pulled over." And then he set the phone up. He got the ticket, and just drove off. But he literally turned the phone on. And this is where we are now, though.
But I mean, but why wouldn't you? Yeah, but why wouldn't you? You know it's going to work. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, like, to a certain extent, people know that these cops' hands are tied. We know that. Like, let's again, what's the same thing like we talked about earlier? Where are the overt acts? Like, I want to see the overt act of the police just driving down the street and saying, no, you, boom, let's get out and let's kill him or whatever.
Right. Like we don't we know that there are bad police officers out there.
Yeah.
But there are also bad teachers out there too. There are bad social workers.
There are racist
bad businessmen.
Yes.
But it would be just as outrageous to demonize all teachers, all businessmen because of the bad apples in that profession. And because of the way the defund police movement was winked at and endorsed by so many Democratic leaders, we as a society ended up turning police officers into janitors, as opposed to the police officers or leading force of authority that they are in these cities. Now it's their job sort of to like kind of clean up after the violence instead of actively trying to prevent the crimes from happening. This is where they are now. So now they just show up just to stand around and just wait until it's all done, like a janitor, so that they can do the cleanup work versus getting involved. Like you described the gentleman, the police officer you talked to. They know the consequences of what would happen now if they get involved.
Well, let me show you this clip real quick, because this is the same type of thing that happened in Chicago, but there was actually somebody did get hurt. This was the young couple that was attacked. So let me show you this clip real quick, and we got a couple other ones that go along with it. So I'm gonna show you this one first, talk about it, then we'll get on to the other two.
Okay.
Cheryl Ashley Knudsen says she can't watch that video. She's only seen it once, and that was enough to relive the horror. Her boyfriend is still bloodied and injured from the group beating they took along the street through downtown Saturday night. The shrieking is the sound of pure panic. In this cell phone video shared by CWB, that's Ashley Knudsen at the center of this mob Saturday evening. Visiting Chicago from out of state, Knudsen and her boyfriend were searching for a place to eat when they happened upon a crowd along Wabash Avenue.
Said, DJ, I just got pushed, and he turned around and he said, don't put your hands on her, don't push her. And as soon as he said that, everything went crazy. Like, they went crazy. They started jumping us, saying they're gonna kill us.
You can't even see DJ in the video. He's already on the ground.
They were kicking and punching me, and I just had to get to the fence. Can't do much with it. It's like 20 people on me.
That's when Lenora Dennis, who just stepped out of Macy's, intervened.
I literally got in front of a police car and put my hands up and was telling them, hey, these people are getting assaulted.
At that point, Dennis said she had no choice.
I just ran over there and just kind of started cursing at them and told them to get away and go, and like a mom would do, like when you see a bunch of kids acting crazy.
Stripped of their cell phones, credit cards, and even the shoes off their feet, Dennis swooped in and sped the beaten and bloodied couple away to safety. They'll never forget that.
All I can say is I was put there.
Knutson said that the Chicago police.
Prosecutors in Kansas.
Cheryl Ashley Knutson says she can't watch that video.
Yeah, that was the young couple that was attacked by a mob out there in Chicago.
Mm.
I will say this: they didn't look that bad. Like it didn't look like they got
No.
really bad beaten. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I mean I also understand something like sometimes when you get jumped, it's not as bad as getting beat one-on-one. But
Right.
you know, anyways, the whole thing is that there are people just out here being lawless.
They are. They are. And like I said, it's the long economic hangover from those pandemic policies. This is what people I shouldn't say this is what people wanted, but this is what Democrats called for. They defund the police. You know, the thing about police reform and defunding the police is that they're two separate things. And you can't call for defunding of the police without having something else to, to put in place of that, to replace it with, which is what they didn't do. Yeah, and that's why this ended up being so ineffective. A lot of those policies from the pandemic ended up being ineffective. You know, there was an article that came out as far back as 2011. It was WHYY, August of 2011. You can actually Google the article. It's called, it was titled, "Are Teen Mobs the Next Wave of Civil Unrest?" And what the article was going into detail about, it was actually describing viral culture, how the viral culture wave was coming into basically perpetuate different acts of violence that they didn't have to suffer consequences for, particularly the flash mobs. And I think that there was a knockout game that was going on around that time where people would go up to a random person and I guess hit them on the street. There was like a lot of teens that were doing that or whatever. Well, the article was kind of putting out a call to action during that time due to rising concerns about these types of violent developments within viral culture that they found happening prevalent mostly in like cities. And they were talking about how the ubiquity of social media was playing a role in that. And here it is, you fast forward to 2020, and then you have the civil unrest that happened due to George Floyd. And of course Breonna Taylor and then the pandemic, and here we are in 2023, and now we're seeing cities like Compton, Chicago, Baltimore, Philly, where you have crowds of people ages like 13 to 24 coming out in droves to these designated locations and committing acts of violence just at large, in large numbers. And these people, if you notice, the kids don't fear their parents. But none of these people fear police. They don't fear any type of repercussion whatsoever.
Which is weird because that's the narrative that we're told, is that everybody's afraid of the police. And I always say that I see the exact opposite. That's what I see. I don't see anybody afraid of the police. I see people, they're provoking the police.
Yes.
And it's the policymakers that are giving these people excuses. Number one is the new mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, who just the one who just is now taking over for Lori Lightfoot. And he came out. Let me play this brief clip. It's about 30 seconds. This was his response to the takeovers that happened in Chicago this past weekend.
Look, demonizing children is wrong. We have to keep them safe as well. Have you ever taught middle school? I have. Have you ever raised young people? Do you understand the risk that young people take just because they're young? Do you know that home plate is at the bottom of my stairs? I found that out when my son was sliding down those stairs trying to score. They're young. Sometimes they make silly decisions. They do. And so we have to make sure that we are investing to make sure that young people know that they are supported.
They're young, Faye. They're young. They make silly decisions, like robbing people, like jumping people, like knocking people out for no reason, like stealing, like shooting, gang banging, all this different stuff. They're just silly decisions.
This is crazy. This is crazy. And you know what's crazy? Out of the frying pan into the fire, that did the city of Chicago jump by voting Mayor Lightfoot out and putting this guy in. And this is why I say Democrats bear a substantial amount of responsibility for this situation that we're seeing. Don't blame the kids. They're just being kids. Okay, so what do you perpetuate? Notice he didn't say a solution. The solution to that is this. This is what we're going to do to get these kids out of the street, to get, to stop this from happening, to put in some preventative measures so that, crime and the looting and all of these teen mobs he didn't say any of that. It's just coddling.
I just posted this on my Instagram, right? An LA City Council member named Nithya Raman or something like that, right? I guess there was an uptick in her district of catalytic converters being stolen. She literally said this, and you go check out my Instagram, Shay_uncensored. I just posted it right before we went on, right? She literally said, well, the car manufacturer basically make it really easy to steal, and you basically put in something that's worth the amount of a MacBook and making it easily accessible. So why are we having to deal with this when they can just they shouldn't be making it so easy to steal? I mean, this is like, I mean, I look at it like this. This is how I take it. Are we that stupid? Are we that? Yeah, are we that like uncivilized and savage that I can't control myself, that I will just steal because it's there? Like, this is ridiculous. Like, normal people don't do this, man. Like, you know what? I really sit there and I think about this. Like, I go to the gym. Sometimes I need to go. I walk away. I go and I'll grab, the little, what you call those things, the antibacterial wipes or something, so to wipe down the bench or something that you were using. And I'll leave my bag there. Nobody takes it. You know what I mean? And for the most part, I believe that people just don't do stuff like that. And 99% of society, they don't do stuff like that. Why is it that there's a small minority of people, and it race is not the determining factor. It's just people that grow up that have no morals, no values, that it's just, live to see another day type of mentality, and that we just have to give excuses for them.
It's amazing to see people like him turn blind eye to criminality, which is what it is, and degeneracy, because you identify with, being young, and young people do silly things, and all because, I mean, this is the work of a fool. But to me, it just appears as if these are people that just want to appeal to their voting base.
Yeah.
At this point, all they want to do is appease their voting base. They don't care about anything but themselves, and making sure that these very people who are committing these criminal acts, and the elders that, live around them, are going to vote for them every election season.
Well, and then you couple that with the looming threat of the 85-year-old racist white man with a gun who will shoot you for stepping onto his property, and you see how they feel. Like, okay, we have to vote for these people because they're the only people that are going to speak up for us, as if their number one threat in people, especially in the inner cities, is the number one threat to people in the inner cities is the 85-year-old white man that you just might so happen to stumble upon his front porch and get shot. This is ridiculous. And I look at it like this. This is my take on this. I think that the racism is reversed, and it's reversed in the sense that the people that are constantly screaming about racism or constantly calling themselves quote unquote anti-racist are actually doing the work of real racists. And what I mean by that is, this is the example that I give. If you called me as a business consultant and you said, "Shay, man, my business is I'm losing money, it's failing. What should I do?" And I went and I looked over everything and I said, and I look and I go, "Oh, I found the problem." Right? But instead of telling you what the problem is and getting you to focus on that problem, I start pointing you in 10 other directions. And these other directions are everything that you cannot help. It's the consumer's fault, it's the market's fault, it's everything, everybody else's fault but your own. But the one thing that you can do, I keep diverting you from that. And that's what I think is going on, is that the things that you can really change, the things that can really turn not just yourself as an individual, but your family and your community around, they keep pushing you away from.
Yes.
Don't talk about that.
Yep.
Instead, why is Toyota making these catalytic converters so easily accessible? Let's blame them instead of saying, stop stealing.
Instead of holding people accountable. Why is it so difficult? Why is accountability so difficult these days? Why is it so difficult to hold people accountable for their actions? The criminality that's going on in these cities is insane. It's insane. And you have a lot of these leaders that, like you said, why does Toyota keep making these Cadillac converters? Oh, they just did a little stealing. Oh, they're young. What do you say? They're young.
They
Oh,
make
they're
silly
young.
decisions.
They make silly decisions. Don't, this is insane.
They
But
jumped a couple. They jumped some people. They could have killed. They committed violence towards somebody where somebody could have died, but it's just a silly decision. Why don't we have that same energy? And I'm not excusing this, but why don't you have that same energy for the guy that shot Ralph Yarl? Why don't you have that same and say he made a silly decision? When you get old, and you start, you start to you're kind of weak and you get scared at young people, you make a decision and maybe that decision's silly. Is that a silly decision?
That's a good point right there. That's a good point right there. They're not going to look at it that way. They're not going to examine it with a critical eye like you just did. But that's a very good question. They always avoid all responsibility for the actions of certain people and run around demanding justice and accountability from the rest of us. And when I say the rest of us, I mean law-abiding citizens, because there are a lot of us, for the most part, a lot of us really just want to go to work or go to school, pay our taxes, and go home and mind our own damn business and take care of our families. That's what most of us want to do. A lot of us don't want to go around feeling like we're under a threat, a constant threat.
Mm-hmm.
But we are in a lot of these cities. A lot of people are, perhaps, did it occur to anybody that perhaps, and I'm not excusing what he did, but maybe the 85-year-old man really just was scared. Maybe he was afraid.
But you're not allowed to, that's not allowed to even be, you're not allowed to even question that. Like, you're not allowed to even allow yourself and I'll say this, the empathy, because that's what it takes to put yourself in somebody else's position to say, how would I feel if I was an 85-year-old white man and some young kid who and let's really get into this here, Faye. Listen, and I'm just being honest here, right? If you allow yourself or you allow people to portray themselves in a certain way, then that, and I always say this all the time, like, this has to come from everybody. Like, everybody has to be invested in this, right? We can't sit here and say we love the gangster rap and then wonder why people who don't listen to gangster rap, but they get clips of gangster rap and they see these guys beefing with each other, talking about killing each other, talking about robbing each other, gang signs and all this type of stuff. And then they run into somebody that looks like that at the store or walking down the street, and then they get scared or they get paranoid or they reach for their weapon. You understand what I'm saying
Yeah.
here? Like, if you allow this to be portrayed, the image to be portrayed and sold and marketed, because that's what it is. It's sold and it's marketed, and you put it out there, and then you sit here and you say, well, hey, this goofy white guy who doesn't listen to rap, or he doesn't see the violence, and now he's seeing these things on TV where these mob takeovers, where they're saying, and then politicians making excuses for them, and cops not intervening because they don't want to be on the front, on national news. What are you supposed to do in that situation? Like I said, I'm not making excuses for the guy that shot Ralph Yarl, or anybody that does anything to anybody. I don't believe in silly decisions. I believe in accountability. Like, if you make a bad decision, you get held accountable. The only way you stop making silly decisions, quote unquote, silly decisions, is you're held accountable for that decision.
That's it. That's all.
You see what I'm saying?
But notice, like what the Chicago mayor did, and I have to reiterate this point, is he offered no specific plan regarding the threat of renewed violence that's taking place in Chicago. You can't sit here and tell me they're young. Young people do silly things and stuff like that, and then offer no plan to basically neutralize the threat. You didn't make anyone feel safer. Public safety is important, is it not? Don't you want the residents of Chicago to feel safe? So what is your plan? And he didn't say anything about that. And I'm noticing that with a lot of these city leaders, from Chicago to Philly to Baltimore. I notice, because these mobs are taking place, and they've been taking place over the past 2 weeks, heavy. They're talking about what went wrong and what has happened, but no one is offering a specific plan. There is no plan in place at all to basically neutralize the threat of violence.
I think the plan is chaos. As Lisa said, people are watching these groups not be held accountable, then wonder why they're getting shot for showing up at someone's door. They are setting up this situation.
That's a good point.
I'm just saying, you know what I mean? I mean, you do this, and obviously, in a perfect world, everybody would judge people based on the individual. But in a real life, that's idealism, right? That's not reality. Like, reality, you have to live in reality. So, in reality, I think bears are friendly and should be in the wild, and they are very nonviolent. But they show up at my doorstep, I don't have time to think about that. I'm getting the gun and I'm shooting them.
Right.
And that's just it. So, a lot of times in real life situations, people have to make decisions, and the decisions that they make are going to be the ones that save their lives. And so, it's all about, being mindful of that, and understanding how the media and some of these policymakers, they sell this stuff.
Yes, they do. It's all about cranking up the narrative to sell this rate, to create this racial divide, and to keep it going. And this is the type of stuff, seeing it happen in real time now, it really just makes me think about the civil rights movement of the 60s, the late 50s and 60s, and what exactly was, because I really don't believe that what we're seeing now and the way the media is portraying things is really any different than it was then. I just think over time, we've been awakened to certain things within media, with how the role mainstream media plays in terms of propaganda. Mm-hmm. But I really don't see because even back then there was always a story that they centered on and they made it like the nucleus of whatever agenda they were pushing at said time. You had Emmett Till, you had MLK, you had certain things that were going, the riots that were taking place in like Watts and Detroit, and these are things that, and it was because of various shootings or events that were taking place at said time that the media wanted to focus on. I mean, let the media tell it all Black people are poor, but being Black is not synonymous with being poor. Let the media take it all Black women were on welfare. Welfare is not synonymous with being a woman or Black. But that's the way, these are the games, the mind games that the media likes to play.
And then they all contradict each other. And then and nobody is there to ask the questions. Nobody is there to say, but you said this, and now you're saying that. You see what I'm saying? Like it goes like nobody ever presses, and then that's the part of the media. The media kind of, you know, they don't hold these policymakers or these these politicians accountable. You know, AOC said you can't get mad at these people for looting because they just need some bread. I didn't see anybody going after bread. I saw the kid knocking down a box of condoms. I don't know what that does. Like what? And he didn't even take them. He just knocked them down. Like he just did it. Like there it is, bam. And you're like,
the same thing with them beating up on that couple. What did that do?
What'd that do? Did they have loaves of bread stuffed in their pockets that they were trying to get to? This is not true. Like nobody believes this. But the problem is that there are people that do believe that. Like nobody of any intellectual or any type of intelligence believes this. You and I don't believe this, but there are people out there that they really believe that. Oh, they're really, I mean, I literally had somebody try to tell me that the other day. Like he started to get into the conversation with me and I looked at him like he went, yeah, somebody was trying to tell me about these kids in Chicago. And I was just like, you know what, man? And I kind of looked at him and then he kind of went somewhere else. I don't know what because I'm like, don't start this, dude. Don't start telling me about like, you know, because I don't go for it. I don't buy it, bro. It's ridiculous.
Without a real plan in place, this is just going to keep happening. It's all about public safety, but I believe that the agenda really is to make us all feel as unsafe as possible so that they can push this gun ban and on top of it, try to implement another type of crime bill kind of thing. That's what I believe the plan is. They want us begging for it.
Yeah, well, you see, their students. At best, there'll be another crime bill. At worst, they will implement martial law.
That's what they want. There is definitely an agenda behind this because there's no way in the world all of these crimes are simultaneously happening at once, and there's something going on. It's deeper than what we're seeing on TV.
Yeah,
what they're
definitely.
telling us rather on TV.
Definitely, there's definitely it's getting. It's turning into the wild west, and you know in the wild west, you know you got to stay strapped, and they're going to make it to where they're the only ones.
Yep, you are absolutely right about that. They want to be the only ones.
Wild times we're living in, Faye. Well, Faye, you got anything that you want to before we head out here? Anything that you want to plug, anything that you want to shout out, anything that you just want a positive word you want to leave?
I want to say thank you, Shay, for having me. This has been a great discussion. I'm glad that we touched on this subject. I hope to come back again really soon.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You know, what I want to give everybody the advice just in general that I kind of put out there yesterday. And it was just about governing yourselves properly. You got to make sure that no matter everything in the world is like rapidly shifting, as we can see and as we discussed tonight. You just make sure you govern yourselves and you take care of your families and you protect your families at all costs. And if it means doing what it is you need to do, then you do what you got to do.
Simple. I love it. That's a great.
I don't even want to advocate for anything specific. But govern yourselves wisely and protect your family at all costs.
Man, message received loud and clear. I think that was perfect. That's precise. That's how you're supposed to do it. At least you had a solution. You know what I mean? It's not the Brandon Johnson silly decisions.
I
Well,
still don't understand what that means.
No,
Silly
nobody
decision.
does. He doesn't even understand what that means. He walked away saying that he walked away. He just looked at his handler and says, "I said the right thing, right, boss?" And they said, "Yeah, keep going. Don't worry. Another five-star restaurant we're gonna go to." But but I appreciate you coming on, Faye. Yeah, we'll definitely do
Thank
this
you.
again.
Thank you so much.
Stick around for a second. I'm gonna go ahead and close out, and then I will talk to you in a second. But I appreciate you being here. So that was our guest, Faye Bishop. I appreciate you guys, man. Deep conversations, man. This is the type of stuff that we do right here on the No Spoon Podcast. We talk about the real stuff that's going on, things that they're not going to tell you in the mainstream media. We cover culture, politics, and something that they don't cover, which is common sense. You know what I mean? All sprinkled in with a little common sense. We appreciate you guys for tapping in this evening or night, wherever you're at. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please make sure you do so now. Also, like, share, comment, get this out to as many people as possible. Those that are listening to the replay or watching the replay, do the same. Subscribe. If you're listening to it on Apple or Spotify, please leave a review, and we hope you leave a 5-star review. You know what I mean? That just bumps the algorithms up. I appreciate you, everybody, for being here. We'll be here again next Thursday. We're here every Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific time, for another episode of the No Spoon Podcast. My name is Che. Until then, see you then.